Today I'm going to be picking my Kwikset Smartkey Gen 2. You can tell it's a smart key by this little change hole on the front that lets you change the key without having to gut the lock. Because it's a Gen 2, that means we can pick it normally. Gen 3s, you have to shim the sidebar down the hole or down the side here somehow. But we don't have to worry about that. Yeah, so this picks normally. The bitting I've got on this key is pretty annoying. It's got this max lift right behind. I don't think it's quite a minimum lift, but it doesn't take much to set this one. So I need to use a reasonably steep hook to get it up in there. This one has like a pointed tip. Like it's not a flat hook, so that's kind of useful for feeling out the pins and making sure you're on the right pin. Because this is a slider lock, the pins don't drop back down, or there's no key pins, it's just sliders. So the key pins aren't dropping back down to the same spot every time. So it's a little bit harder to know where they are in the lock. So it's quite useful to be able to feel them out. Now, when I was first trying to pick this lock and having a fair bit of difficulty, I tried asking people, oh, how do you pick it? Is there anything I need to know? And like most locks, people just said, oh, you make sure you do the jiggle test. And that wasn't super helpful at first, because the feeling of jiggling a pin tumble lock and jiggling in this lock, until you realize what you're feeling for, then it's not quite clear. Like it's slightly different. So the way I ended up learning that difference was to progressive pin it and get the feeling with only a couple of pins of what a set and unset pin felt like. And for me, the secret was that you've got to get the right amount of tension, which I guess is true for any lock, but it just took me a while to figure out what that was. So if you have too much tension, you can bind, you'll just bind everything up. Not enough tension, and then everything is jiggly. And when you get just the right tension, only one thing will bind at once, which is just like any other pin tumble lock, but it took me a while to figure out how that's different. So I'm going to try and pick it now. I kind of know the binding order, but I just start from the back for this one. So got to click from pin 5, and now I feel it, and it's much more jiggly, like it's mushy and flopping all over the place. Pin 4 is rock solid, so I just back off the tension a tiny bit, and then makes it easier to set 4. Now 3 is binding, rock solid, so one click, and then still binding, so push it up a bit more. And you wouldn't might have seen we just got a bit of core rotation, so that would have been probably falling into the gate on pin 3. Now 1 and 2, both of them feel pretty solid, but 1 is just a bit more. And we clicked 1, and again core rotation. Now it feels like back at 5. This is binding, so let's give that a nudge. Okay. Four again. One. Just checking that we've got 3 up high enough. By the sounds of that click, I don't know if we did. So let's go back to 1, and there we're sort of getting counter rotation, and we opened it up. So this lock has sliders. I'm about to gut it, and we'll see what they look like. They also do kind of have false gates, so kind of acts serrated. Like they're not super deep gates, but they're there and they do trap you a little bit. So this lock's super easy to gut. Don't even need a follower. Just pull the core out. The padlock version isn't guttable without destroying it, so it's kind of nice to have this format. Yeah, so there's the sidebar. You can tell it's a Gen 2 because there's only one way this sidebar would fit in, and I think the Gen 1 can go either way. I haven't actually seen a Gen 1 in real life, so I don't know it that well, but from photos that looks like a distinguishing point. So yeah, sidebar that falls into the gates on the sliders when you pick it. Okay, so I'll flip this over and then take this off, and hopefully the sliders all... Oh, that one didn't. Okay, so you can see there, they sit in those grooves and slide up and down. Put this down. And well, I guess there's two parts. There's these ones that the key interacts with, and then they interact with these bits. And those different grooves there latch on to those slots or sticky outy bits on the key pins. So you can get different bitting by putting the pins in different notches. So the way that works for rekeying is that when you push this whole assembly back, these slide off those ledges, they slide onto those ledges, so that locks it in place, and then it's off the key pins, and then you put a different key in, and the key pins move to different heights, and then they slide back on, and you lock into a new groove to get a different bitting. So that's pretty cool. These locks are pretty cool. They're not renowned for being very reliable, which is a bit of a shame, but the mechanism's definitely interesting. So yeah, there's an example of one of the sliders. So there's the true gate, that nice deep one, and then we've got these false gates which catch us while we're trying to pick it. You can't really see that well. There we go. So yeah. Now I'm going to reassemble this because I've heard of people who had trouble reassembling them and just put all the bits in a Ziploc bag, never to be touched again. So reassembling them can be a bit tricky, but there are some, I don't know, I think there's some tricks I've discovered along the way that might be useful to other people. So the first thing I do when reassembling is just put all of these bits back in the spots they belong, in their grooves. Tweezers probably help. Where are my tweezers? And then you want to make sure that these are all lined up in the spots they want to be. So I find the easiest way to do that is just to grab a pick and get them roughly where you want them, and then put the pick down the groove like that. And if you twist it a bit, you sort of occupy as much space as possible, and that gets them really nicely lined up. Then the next bit, if you leave the key in, you'll automatically set the bitting to your key. If you don't, you should probably make sure you do that before you put it back in the lock. But what I do is I tip this upside down and I put it on top, and I want to compress that spring into this side before I push it on, and then I let it slide back. And what that does is lines up the groove with these notches, and then when you slide it back, it interacts with the key. So I'm going to do that from this angle. Yeah, I missed. Annoyingly, sometimes you can push the sliders with your finger when you're doing this, so it can be a bit tricky, but it is doable. All right, I think I got it. So the way to test that is then get the sidebar, and if you put the sidebar back in and it presses all the way in, then you're good to go. So that looks fine. I'll just chuck that back in the lock and take the key out, put these bits back on. And yep, still works. So I hope that's helpful to anyone trying to pick a Gen 2 Kwikset Smartkey. These aren't super easy to find. I don't know if you can get them new anywhere easily. Like, I think all the ones on Amazon and stuff are Gen 3 these days. But if you do come across one of these, yeah, hopefully this helps you get into it.